Well, folks, let's go ahead and get started, and hopefully, some more people will join us. Feel free to stop me if you have questions. I'm going to go ahead and go through my prepared remarks so that we can capture that on camera and be able to rebroadcast for folks who weren't able to join us today. I know a lot of you have advocacy fatigue at this point. We finished off the legislative session here in Oklahoma, and there's just a lot going on nationally. So I know a lot of us are feeling a little burned out and fatigued. But I do have some good news as well as other news that you should be aware of that I want to make sure that we capture today and rebroadcast. So let's go ahead and get going, and feel free to ask questions in the chat or to email me later or to stop me if there's anything you'd like to comment on or ask. Uh, Quickly on the federal side of things related to the arts, we are in a bit of a lull at the moment. Um, As you know, at the beginning of March, the president announced his skinny budget, which is an overview of the federal budget. Within that budget, he did not allocate funds to the National Endowment for the Arts, Humanities, our library and museum system, IMLS, or to the CBE, which includes NPR and PBS. In addition to that, um, this was something though that we had seen done before, so wasn't unexpected. Where we are now, of course, the president can recommend a budget to Congress, but it's up to Congress to finalize and decide the budget. We are in that appropriations process right now as we speak. Oklahoma Representative Tom Cole is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. I did try and get a meeting with his office. However, I will be able to get a meeting with his office. I asked for a meeting with him, and that request was not granted. But I do hope to meet with his team and have some updates there. But we should know within the next few weeks to early to mid July whether or not Congress is going to appropriate funds to the National Endowment for the Arts and those other agencies. After that happens, we'll have a much clearer picture of what's happening on a federal level and what to expect for fiscal year 26, which starts October 1st. Of course, sadly, we know that in recent months, 560 NEA grants were canceled. Those span the performing arts, literary arts, folk arts, education, and had nationwide a $270 million impact to the arts sector. So hopefully we won't see that trend continue to play out, but we just don't know right now. So that's the federal update. Again, action fights anxiety, and I know we all are feeling probably a little anxious about the future and federal funding for the arts. So the actions that I'm asking you to take here are similar to what we talked about last month, but in particular, if you live in Congressional District 4, which includes the Moore, Norman area, Lawton, Aden, Duncan, and Ardmore. You'll see that small graphic up in the map. So South Oklahoma City down, which is Chairman Cole's district. Please consider signing. We have a letter and petition to sign on the OFTA website. Reach out to Tom Cole's office and be sure to invite him and his staff to events and other things going on in the district. In addition to that, regardless of where in the state of Oklahoma you might live, please go ahead, and this is the time of year to reach out to your congressional and Senate representatives and ask them to come to events in the district, as well as letting them know and telling your stories of how those federal funds have been used by your organization and are materially impacting their constituents. So got to continue to reach out and let them know. Personal stories and stories about how the arts directly impact you and our economy here in Oklahoma are absolutely critical. We also have a way for you to tell those stories that Americans for the Arts has provided to us using the link with this QR code. You can get onto the OFTA website and they will walk you through a form to share those stories about how federal funds have helped in your area, as well as how, if you have had any cuts, what the impact of that has been. So please go ahead and take that action. In Oklahoma, some updates. So, from a legislative standpoint, there wasn't a lot of action related to the arts during our most recent legislative session. We did see these four bills passed: SB 162, which is establishing a financial revolving fund for a piece of public art, the State Capitol Arch Memorial, to be created. And that will be a veterans memorial outside of the Capitol. That is simply the funding mechanism. I'm sure there is a lot of planning and work, though, that will have to go on behind the scenes to actually before we actually see that come to fruition. There was a bill, HB 1217, that more commonly is called a drag show bill, which puts new restrictions around adult performances and the definition of obscene material in public spaces, how close that is to schools and minors, etc. HB 2673 was a bill that helps the OK Pop Museum that they had been working on for quite some time unlock the state funds. So OK Pop is a mix of private and state funded monies to help open the doors there. It's a historical part of the Historical Society's properties, while also having a large public component to it of private monies that need to support it. And in order for them to unlock, though, the state portion of those funds, they had to get some changes in the language that allowed them to include pledges of monetary donations that then would go to the total match that had to be raised in order to unlock the state funds. And so that was a really important bill that did get passed that will help that museum move forward in building its collection and being able to access the funds it needs from the state to be open the doors and be operational. And then the last bill I've got listed here, HB 2160, gave museums a more comprehensive legal framework to manage undocumented collections and goods and donations they had received over time when the title wasn't necessarily clear. So those were some of the bills that went through this session that impacted the arts in our sector. Other things that are going on right now, we are already heating up for the 2026 election cycle next fall. The governor's race has 5 individuals, those first 5 that are listed, who have thrown their hat in the ring on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, Cindy Munson is the lone candidate right now. The Republican race could, with that number of candidates in it, I think we'll see both a primary and probably a runoff. I don't think anybody will get out of the first round of the primary with 50% of the votes. So we'll be looking at a governor's runoff race on that side of the ticket in August next year. In addition to the folks listed on the screen, there are a lot of rumors that Matt Pinnell, our lieutenant governor, as well as Education Superintendent Ryan Walters, may throw their name into the ring. So that's what's happening with the governor's race. It'll be an interesting one next year. With Cindy Munson's announcement that she's running for governor, that has impacted the Oklahoma House Democratic leadership team. And so as she will be running, the Democrats have now leader-elect is Representative Melissa Provenzano out of the Tulsa area. The caucus chair is Representative Deck out of Norman. And the vice caucus chair is Oklahoma City-based Ellen Hefner from HD 87. So some changes there. The current leadership remains in place through the summer and the fall, but of course, this will go into effect right around the time of bill filing and language and all of that going into the next session. The good news, which is a good and bad message, the Oklahoma Arts Council's budget is key to part of OFTA's mission is helping preserve, maintain, safeguard the Arts Council's budget. We helped achieve that mission. There were a lot of you, including everybody who showed up at Arts Day, fighting for this. We, in what was a very up and down end of session with the things going on with the mental health department and sales tax revenue projections, I think everybody was we were all on edge about what would happen with our various state agencies and funding. Originally, the agency had requested a increase to their budget. That did not happen this session, although they also didn't take any decreases. And so the appropriation, that fiscal year 25 appropriation, held level. And then there was a one-time appropriation that they requested and got that helps them maintain the Capitol Art Collection at the state capitol. So not great news, but not bad news either, and certainly not as bad as we had feared it could have been. So unfortunately, although they got a slight increase, that they have other increased costs coming up. If you remember in the past couple months when Director Sharples has met with us and shared information with you, she's looking at not only increased labor costs, which are expected with inflation for her team and benefits and so on, but also increased expenses when the agency moves back into the Jim Thorpe building, which is currently under renovation. She may have to pay rent and so on in the future. So although the budget was flat and maintained, she's got some additional expenses going on there. In addition, just to be aware of that, I want to make sure everybody is in the loop on in your budget planning. I think for all of us, especially in the nonprofit arts sector right now, budgeting in the coming year is really tough. For the fiscal year 26 grant award cycle for the Arts Council, it is going to be delayed. So many of you are on a July 1 fiscal year starting, and some of your budget is likely up in the air as we wait to find out about the National Endowment for the Arts funds and what will happen there. Well, that trickle down, of course, impacts the Arts Council, where 20% of their funds is coming through the NEA and then is redistributed. So keep that in mind. I know you were well aware of it. Amber and her team will, as quickly as they can, approve those grant requests, but the whole cycle is being pushed back at the moment as we wait to see what happens with the federal budget. So they anticipate being at least a full month behind in the notification of awards. For often we were looking forward and to what may happen, what we want to work on your behalf in the next year. Going into the next legislative cycle, when you work on policy, you've got to do it 1 year to 2 years out as you're thinking about what you would like to get passed. The areas that we're looking at right now include things like AI protections for artists. So we look and see what are some things that are going on that we need to protect and safeguard intellectual property and fair compensation, transparency and attribution. So we're looking at those things and how they impact artists in our state, and how do the laws need to change as the technology changes in the world that we're all using. Another area that we're looking at on behalf of our nonprofit of partners includes fair ticketing legislation. So we know that there are fraudulent and bad players out there when it comes to ticketing. And right now in Oklahoma, we don't have a lot of laws pertaining to that to keep people from spoofing and selling fake tickets in the state and having penalties. And so we want to look at that. It damages audience trust, you know, when somebody shows up for the Nutcracker at the Civic Center and unfortunately they've paid way too much for tickets on a site that looked where they thought they were dealing directly with the ballet, or they show up for a lyric show, and the organizations do the best they can to accommodate those folks. But then unfortunately, you know, you just got some people who have paid too much and don't have real tickets in their hands. So we want to make sure that we've got some ways to promote transparency in ticketing and fair ticketing practices. And frankly, not only so to protect consumers, but so those monies they can buy tickets from people here in the state and not out of state. So we're looking at those laws and what's already been passed in other parts of the country. Of course, we'll be continuing to work on Oklahoma Arts Council's funding and make sure that we safeguard or increase that funding. Right now, we are under $1. When you look at the funding per person in the state, we're under $1. And so we'd like to see that come up. We're looking at an economic impact study and having that conducted this fall. We would also love to see the fine arts education requirement reinstated as a graduation requirement here in Oklahoma. That went away last session or 2 sessions ago. So we would like to work on how can we get that reinstated. We think that's a critical part of having a creative workforce here in Oklahoma and frankly, a workforce ready and students ready for college. It's a very important part of the curriculum that should be included. So those are 4 possible areas we're looking at going into the fall and championing on behalf of you going forward and bringing positive change that impact the arts here in Oklahoma. So again, next steps, same slide as last month. We ask if you are a passionate supporter of the arts, work for an arts agency or organization here in Oklahoma, please reach out to your congressional rep and ask them to support the arts and arts funding through the NEH, NEA, IMLS. Please continue their support of the arts. Make efforts to develop relationships, especially with your local elected officials. It's absolutely critical that we have those long-term relationships in place. Reach out to your Oklahoma House rep and senator, invite them to your events. And one thing that I've been doing more of is getting my board and donors and patrons involved in those meetings and calls. A lot of times they already have personal relationships with those elected officials or are donors on their campaign. So a great way to get them involved in telling your story and getting the ear of that elected official. Once again, we cannot do what we do without the support of the Oklahoma Arts Council, the Mid-America Arts Alliance, the Chickasaw Nation, and Kirkpatrick Family Fund. Thank you to each of those organizations for their support of the arts. And that is all I have here for you today. We are always available here at OFTA to support you in any way we can. You can reach out to us at any of these ways, as well as please sign up for our alerts and newsletters. So thank you so much. Are there any questions today? All right. Well, with that, I will conclude our session, and please watch out on the OFTA website for advocacy alerts and any updates. I so appreciate you all. Thank you.